You're watching your local television network, TSPN. And now, authors, writers, books, and beyond. This program also streams live on the web at tspntv.com and can be watched on demand at tspntv.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now, authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Welcome to Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond, the October show. My name is Kathy Boyd Fellure. I'm your monthly hostess for TSPN TV. Welcome this evening. I have a lovely guest I'm going to introduce you to. Her name is Tonia Colleen Martin, and she is a writer, artist, workshop leader, college teacher, and a personal friend. So, Tonia, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm really glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. I'm excited, actually, because you have brought a wealth of treasures to share. So Thanks. Why don't you just tell them a little? I know about you, but the TV audience doesn't. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I've been writing for maybe 30 years, long time. And I started writing because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I just kind of started with what I knew and wrote one scene, and I just was thrilled with this one scene. But then I went to this writing critique group, and they asked me, well, where is this taking place, and why is this happening? And it was astonishing because I didn't think to ask any of those questions. I mean, I just thought, oh, well, this is all clear because it was clear in my head. So my writing career has been really an exploration the whole way. It's kind of like nonfiction is similar to entering a room with all the lights on and describing what you see there, reporting what you see, and fiction is more like going into some very dark place and discovering it as you go, and recreating it with all the senses. How writers know what the colors are, what the scents are, what the temperature is, what all those descriptions, and building a world, taking it from my head and putting it on the paper. So.
And you, when you were in fiction, you used to write for a local Sacramento paper, didn't you?
Yes, the Sacramento Union. It's now defunct. I had nothing to do with that, but it was a great paper, and I had a little column. It was very encouraging to be hired to be a writer, and actually I was hired. This is better. I was hired to be a stringer on the paper. I didn't even know what that was. So that was great because it gave me the discipline of constantly looking for a story, following a story through, having deadlines. I mean, it was a weekly thing, interviewing people, and which, I never had thought of myself as a journalistic writer, or never wanted to. I knew that I wouldn't be able to really stick to the rules and stick to the facts. So fiction seemed the perfect thing for me. When I realized, lots and lots of writers, they'll tell you, I knew I was going to be a writer when I was in 5th grade or 6th grade, and I did not know that until I was in my early 20s, and I used to write these long, involved letters to my friends and family, and was constantly being told, you should be a writer, you should write a book. They probably didn't have time to read my letters, but anyway, that suggested. So then that's when I started thinking about what that might mean and how to go about that.
So not even in high school?
No. I mean, I loved to read, and libraries were the place that I hung out in the libraries and all through my education. And some of my earliest memories are being taken to the public library. It was a safe place. I loved the stories. I loved getting into other worlds. And it seemed safer to me than the halls at the high school. So
Most writers are readers.
Yeah.
I've met very few that aren't. I don't know how.
It turns out to be a problem for writers
Yeah.
now because, especially now, the way the publishing industry is, editors and agents, they're asking for, what is your platform? Well, the book should be the platform, the story, that should be the thing. And so to think that I have to market myself rather than my writing is really frustrating. I took up writing because I could be on the,
Other side. Yeah. In the background.
in the background. It was about the story. It wasn't about me. So
And now we're in the forefront.
yeah,
And not by choice.
yeah, it's very frustrating. And also, as most writers are, they're constantly observing their surroundings. So they do a lot of observing, and they're less kind of take action. But readers want to see a character in action. They want to see them confronted with a problem, a dilemma. As Jim Fry used to say, our characters, we need to put them in terrible trouble.
I remember that from the beginning at
Yeah.
Squaw Valley.
Terrible trouble, and then more terrible trouble.
And TV Land, that's the other Jim Fry, not the one from Oprah, just so you know.
Oh, I didn't know there were two.
There were two.
Okay.
Yeah, I learned a lot from him.
Yes.
I learned a lot
Oh,
from
me
him.
too. Yeah. And that,
My characters were not in terrible trouble. They were in happy land.
yeah. Yeah. So that was hard. That's difficult. It's still difficult. When I was in grad school, one of the biggest obstacles that I had to overcome, which was astonishing to me because, I was writing fiction, but every time I was putting my fiction characters into a difficult situation or where it would be exposing their frailties or their faults or their shortcomings, I was dealing with shame. So, and I couldn't understand why that was coming up for me that way, because I felt like, well, I would have told you, I would have told most people that, God loves me, I'm forgiven, I'm not worried, I don't have a hassle, I don't feel like I'm in trouble with God. But it was unwarranted, but it was enormous. So getting over that has been a real challenge, and I'm still working on that. And
Do you think we're going to work on it the whole time we're here on Earth?
yeah,
Me too.
it's going to be always deeper and darker.
Isn't that encouraging?
Yeah.
Are you encouraged? Because
Yeah.
it's the truth. It's
Yeah.
the definite truth.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we have 4 minutes to break. I would love it if you would start into a little of what you brought and share.
Okay. The other thing is, I'm also an artist. I would say I was a more conceptual artist. I'm definitely not a fine artist, but a conceptual artist, and which is an example of a conceptual art, because this is not fine art, but it's the concept of it. This is an altered book, so it's very rough and tumble kind of thing. But
beautiful.
I put this story together with illustrations, and here's the actual pages of the story are on luggage tags, and it's called The Yellow Suitcase. Oh, for heaven's sakes, I never put a
Suitcase.
title. So it's The Yellow Suitcase, and all the tags are luggage tags. And
Like you're going on a trip.
like I'm going on a trip, and I came up with that idea because I was constantly changing my story. So I thought, if this part of the story changes, so it's not set in stone, I'll put it on the luggage tags.
Oh, I
So-
like that.
Yeah. So it was a very,
How long did this take?
I worked on it a couple weeks.
What about the actual story?
Years. Years. Yeah, it was just this small, it's you could read it in, it could be read in probably 12 minutes. And I think I probably spent 1,200,000 hours on it.
On it,
Yeah.
at least, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful presentation of a story,
Thanks.
a work of art itself that draws the eye not just to the story creatively as you're listening, but the visual. I love visual.
I do too. That's, well, anyway, I'll go to the next thing.
Oh, okay.
So I brought these magazines because, so this is a publication of SIVA, Christians in the Visual Arts. I started painting when I was in Paris. I lived there for 4 months, and I thought I was going there as a student to finish a book, but I couldn't write a word. I couldn't write a word, nothing. I'm so, it's so disappointing, because.
I love the photos you sent us when you were there.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't keep journals. It's crazy, but
Well, that's a photo essay. That is a journal, Tonya. You kept a photo journal.
Oh, there you go.
You didn't even realize it.
No.
I was always
Oh.
waiting for those emails to come in.
Oh, well, that's encouraging. So I joined SIVA. This is fantastic. This is their
Can you
publication.
open one before we go to
Yeah,
break and
yeah.
show them?
It's got poetry. It's got.
Kind of hold it up a little. That is a cool picture.
Yeah, it has art, poetry. It has explanations about the art and about the experience of being an artist, where the ideas come from.
We are going to get back into that first thing we come back, and I will tell you about Clark's Corner upon our return. Join us again. Thanks.
You're watching your local television network, TSPN, and now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond. This program also streams live on the web at tspntv.com and can be watched on demand at tspntv.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Welcome back to Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond's October show at TSPN TV. Again, I'm your host, Kathy Boyd Fellure, and I'm going to talk to you a little about the literary home where my group, Amateur Fiction Writers, meets at Clark's Corner, and I own. And it is a community hub that grows as Craig Clark's imagination continues to grow. It is a oh my gosh, they have this stage in the front with a beautiful, real roped stage, the platform stage where we do a literary read. It's a coffee house, a restaurant. They have paninis and it's salads and Myra's homemade soups that are phenomenal. And the new baker, Alicia, oh my gosh, she's making new pumpkin everything for the holidays. It's just lovely. You never know what you're going to get there. They have a banquet room in the back, which I mentioned before. I had my daughter's CSUS college graduation banquet there, and a beautiful patio on the side. And Craig just hosted his annual cycling event with Chris Horner. So if you're looking for a place for family and friends to gather for any type of anything, really, just call there at 274-2233, that's cafe, and go in and explore the possibilities and enjoy the food while you're at it. And you may see us there. We tend to go in the back where it's quiet because of the coffee machines in the front, but we're always there critiquing manuscripts. And I am coming back to my guest, Tonia, and she was telling you about these beautiful magazines when we left, so we're going to go right back into that. Thanks, Tonia.
Yeah, we were talking about Scene, and it's put out by SIVA, Christians in the Visual Arts, and it's very encouraging. Sometimes when I'm stuck in my writing, if I can get an image, a beautiful image, or read a poem, or read how stories or how a poem comes to other writers, it feels like I'm connected. Writing is such a solitary experience, and it has to be, but to kind of get inside other artists' heads, there's so many similarities between visual art and literary arts. I mean, I feel like they both capture stories.
Of different kinds.
Yeah.
Just different.
In
These are
different angles.
phenomenal. I've never
Yeah,
seen these.
this is beautiful. It's a beautiful publication.
How long have you been reading these?
Since about 2009, they've just got, see the beautiful, I mean, you don't throw them away. They're just something you keep around. You never throw them away. And then this is another publication that I get, and I love. It's Image, Journal of Art and Religion, and they have a writers' conference once a year. The Glen, actually they have the Glen West and the Glen East, and takes place, and it's a different kind of writers' conference. They're not.
Not like Mount Hermon?
No, they're not focused on marketing at all. They're focused on the craft, and they have critiquing groups, and they have readings, and
I
it's
love the readings.
it's really great. Anyway, and this also, so
Is that
this,
more like Squaw Valley then?
yeah, but with more depth.
More in depth. Okay.
Yeah, I would. Well, I can't say that. Anyway, for me, it was more depth for me, but.
Beautiful.
You know, this is another one. I keep all of these. This is a series of paintings that,
Eyes.
yeah, and the artist of these paintings,
You can show it to the TV.
Peter Hausen. So it's a story of his. It's a story of repentance.
Okay.
Repentance and rejuvenation, and it's got a lot of, it's very visceral,
Very.
but it's got a lot of hope in the story. I mean, look at all those figures. There's
Very involved and detailed.
hundreds of people. So inside once again there's poetry, there's fiction, there's nonfiction, there's everything that's going on in the literary world. There's articles about the craft of writing. So that's,
Very helpful.
yeah, it's huge.
So when you need inspiration or you need a break or you just need to take a breath and absorb it.
Yeah, and this is, you know, I would say for me, the article, the writing in here, it's a little bit of work.
Wow, okay.
You know, it's very deep. I work at it, but it's challenging and it pushes me. It stretches me.
Stretches you.
But I like it. I like getting it and keeping it and reviewing it constantly.
You go back to it.
Yeah, yeah. And then I brought this, okay, so this is very old, but this is a anthology.
Oh, from what copy?
So this is,
Like the 60s.
no, it's, I think it's more the 90s.
Is it the 90s?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's this is the 90s. But this gal, Jeannie Marie Walker, so when I really am stuck and dry and uninspired, I go to her, this collections of poems called Stranger Than Fiction, The Notes and Queries of a Daily Exposé Reporter. It's so quirky and so wonderful. So she takes, like, so here's some of the, let's see, here's some of the, and I use these to jar and startle my students, and get them to think of
Does it
life.
work?
Yeah, it's quirky. It's really quirky.
They
but-
probably like quirky.
yeah. Here's one, the function of disaster. Here's one, woman disappears into black hole. Meteor falls in a farmer's backyard. Man's thumb bleeds for 3 years. That's fantastic. I mean, it's wonderful. And then carpenter sets his own house on fire. So she took those bizarre headlines, like from the National Enquirer, and
Is that what they sound like?
she kind of repurposed them.
She did.
And it's a story of, I mean, they're all connected, and they're all connected, and they're all stories of hope and also the contradictions of life, and she has put them and made them credible experiences.
So that spurns your students into creativity.
Yeah, and kind of opens up the borders, like gives them license to look where you can go. I mean, you can be very outlandish, and still your work can have meaning, and you can draw readers in, and they can go back over and over to it.
So they're not boxed in.
Yeah,
I like
Yeah.
that.
I figure what I do with my students is I'm trying to take them, so I teach beginning writing, beginning creative writing at William Jessup University. And so I'm,
Is that Rockland?
yes,
Okay.
Rockland. And I'm trying to take the students on the same path that I went myself. That's the only path I know how to take them on. So I'm exposing them to the literature and the experiences that moved me and gave myself permission to write. And I brought this book, Brett Lott, Letters and Life. And twice in my, I think the word journey is overused, but twice in my experience and development as a writer, Brett Lott's work spoke to me in these quirkiest times, and so specifically. I mean, it was like, Moses in the burning bush, or the writing on the wall, Nebuchadnezzar's writing on the wall, but I would open Brett Lott's work, and then there would be, something would be solved for me, or something would be soothed for me
Oh, either way, it's
in
good.
his writing. So
So it drew out
Yeah.
emotion from deep.
yes, he's very. What I struggle with in writing is the same thing I struggle with in real life, and what my characters struggle with is the same thing I struggle with. I didn't do that on purpose, it just happens. So it's always about bravery,
Yes, it is.
speaking up, using my voice, saying, going against the grain, I think we live in a world where inertia is always dragging us down. So it's going against that inertia. I'm doing that with my writing. And it's always a huge act of faith, sitting down at the keyboard and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be sitting here in maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hours. And it may not amount to anything, but it seems to have meaning for me. So it's been a journey of faith, my writing.
Do you write daily?
Lately, no.
No?
Lately, no. I'm kind of on this, but when I have to fully immerse myself in a work. So when I know that I'm heading that way, then I will,
Okay.
and I probably should. But
Yeah, my schedule has changed over the years, schedule per
Yeah.
se, because I think we're also procrastinators. And I pinned something the other day on the social media. It's on Pinterest of an easy chair facing out an open window, open to an ocean. And it said, yes, I am a writer, and I am writing, even if I'm just sitting here
Yeah.
looking out the window. And it's true.
it's absolutely true.
We may not always be producing multiple sentences, complete paragraphs, whole chapters, but our mind is always going.
Yeah, and I guess I'm talking about in terms of, am I writing every day? It's not on the novel that I'm working on, but I am writing all kinds of stuff. I'm writing lesson plans, and
I bet you're busy
Yes.
with those.
Yeah, and responding to students, and jotting down things in my journals. But it's hit and miss
It's
right
still
now.
writing, though.
Yeah.
It's still writing. Well,
Yeah.
come back. We're going to take
Okay.
another break and come and join us on our second half and learn a little more. You may see yourself here. You may recognize something about yourself. Come back and discover something new. Thanks.
You're watching your local television network, TSPN, and now back to Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond. This program also streams live on the web at tspntv.com and can be watched on demand at tspntv.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now back to Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond.
Hi, welcome to the third segment of Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond at TSPN TV. And I am just thrilled to have Tonia with me today, Tonia Colleen Martin as my guest, friend, author, artist, college professor, workshop leader, and I've taken workshops from her that so helped me grow in my writing life. She stretched me I went not sure of where I was going and came away different, better, and still having to work at it when I left. We were talking a little bit during break about that concept of how sometimes we're overwhelmed by what we need to produce. And when you teach your students, you probably see a lot of what was in yourself when you were their age.
Oh, I wasn't anywhere where they are.
Really?
They're way ahead of where I was. Oh my gosh. And as you know, as I was saying, the best writers are the ones that apologize for their work. And
why do you think that?
Because they have this greater vision. But they're the only one that has that vision. And so they've got a big vision. They're doing the best they can, but it's always falling short of the big vision. That's the way it always is with anything you create. A painting, a sculpture, gardening, sewing a dress. It's always, you think it's going to be this way. It's always a little bit less.
Yeah, I do know.
God's so much bigger than us, but we're in His image, but we're not Him because something bigger than us had to create us. So we're bigger than our stories, and so that's why it turns out. I think that there's that disappointment, and what does finally evolve, develop, is something that is wonderful, but it's not like we thought. It's different, and
that can be a little scary and intimidating, and also at the same time exhilarating and exciting because you didn't know you had it in you.
Right, and that is so true. And also, I think it's one of those phenomenons that makes me realize that I feel like writing really is for me, it's a very spiritual experience. It's, like I said, an act of faith, a spiritual experience, trusting that the words that I'm putting down on paper, which is writing something on paper, is way more difficult than speaking it, because you'll forget what I said and I'll forget what I said. But once it's written down, and then later on, I may feel differently, and I may wish I had that person in my story do a different thing, make a different choice, but it's already there. So yeah, it's a challenging thing.
Sometimes it's just huge.
Yeah. But I still love it, and I still know that that's the way, that has been the biggest discipline of my own growth, and the way for me to get at those areas in me that stay hidden. C.S. Lewis says you can't do what you can't first imagine. So
that's so true.
Yeah, so to actually have my characters get up off the chair or walk out the door or make a statement that I would be too afraid, I have to be brave enough to write it. I have to imagine it, then I have to write it, then I have to read it to somebody. And then I have to know that they're going to read it. So yeah, it's
and be able to understand it.
Yeah, it's a huge,
and want to read more.
Yeah, they'll keep.
You brought a C.S. I don't have that book. You brought.
Yeah,
this.
I love this C.S. Lewis. Okay, so this is a year. I've ripped up the cover. It was a paper cover, but C.S. Lewis, a year with C.S. Lewis. So every day there's an excerpt from one of his works. It's all what did he write? The Problem of Pain, A Severe Mercy.
Shadowlands he wrote.
Shadowlands. That
was a movie first. That was a play first, then a book.
It was Grief Observed.
Grief Observed.
Yeah.
Whoa, that was powerful.
Yeah. And Mere Christianity is in here.
And my favorite, the Screwtape Letters.
Yep, it's in here. The Great Divorce. There's excerpts from everything. And so and I can just pick up, I stay on the day and I read a selection of his work. And then I also, Frederick Buechner. So Frederick Buechner is fantastic. So he's very quirky, unpredictable, and I love what he does. One of his stories, he took Pilate and put Pilate in he has a scene where he has Pilate working in a high-rise building, being chauffeured around, smoking a cigarette, and his wife calls him on the telephone and tells him, don't mess with that man.
Oh my goodness.
And they're talking about Jesus. And so it's very credible. I mean, you buy it, that suspension of reality.
I love unpredictable.
So this is, again, by the days, and you can get excerpts from all these books. He wrote tons, and he has prayers in his books that his fiction characters pray, and I use them in the classroom, and they're fantastic. So I like that.
So are you in and out of those every day?
Hit and miss. You know how
Yeah.
you pick up a book? I mean, I imagine you have stacks of books by your bed. I have stacks of books by my bed, in the
At your
living room,
desk.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And they follow me around in my car. So,
Kind of roll around.
yeah.
Before we go to the next break, would you share about your book, The Color of Grace?
Well, this is it's out of print, The Color of Grace, and it's under my former name. It's not, it's Tonia Triebwasser, but I'm Tonia Martin now, and you can get it on Amazon probably for a penny, or it's, and so it's Thoughts from a Garden, The Color of Grace, Thoughts from a Garden in a Dry Land. And it goes through the season from January to December, reflective essays. So, yeah, I have this listed on my website.
What's your website?
It's Mining with a Feather. So I have a blog that's Mining with a Feather, and I have a Facebook, Mining with a Feather. And I'm really trying to get better at that and be more relaxed about it.
Blogging?
Yeah, but it feels sort of invasive. It feels like tooting my own horn. So I have to change my mind about it and make it more of, well, this is a place where people can come for information, where I can get the word out. It's kind of like a bulletin board. So
you won't be so much an occasional blogger.
Right. So I'm working on that. It's hard to
hard.
keep all those plates in the air.
Yeah. I let a couple go, crushed.
Yeah.
At Squaw Valley this year, New York told us, the editors and agents panels, how they're always in one day. By the way, we're letting you all off the hook. Just pick one or two, social media, and really put yourself into it. We were wrong. We basically were being told to do everything. And writers can't write if they're doing that. When are we going to write? It becomes almost a burden.
Well, the very act of writing itself, I mean, it's a process of digging down into yourself. It's not, and exploring and finding the stories that are there, and
That's my
posting stuff is it's just a different thing.
It is for me. I
Yeah.
think some of the younger generation like it more. It's not a natural thing for me. It's the opposite for me.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's what they want today. My vision of a writer was a writer writing books.
Yeah, I had a lot of misconceptions about writing. I thought of writers, now that, like magicians. They could take they pull these words out of the air and put them together, and you can just walk into these worlds that words put together a world that becomes three-dimensional in my head. How did that happen? Yeah. So,
I don't know, sometimes I feel alone. Do you ever feel alone?
in the writing,
I mean, I know because we're on our own. There isn't like a big office with 6 writers writing novels together. We're in our own wherever our office is sequestered. Whether we have our own office, it's a computer or a typewriter. Some people still use typewriters on a table, dining room table. I've written in different places. You probably have too. Had an office, not have an office. I like having the office
yeah.
because I can create the space around me too.
Yeah, I have to have complete quiet. A lot of people write with music.
Music, you don't. That was going to be
I
one of my
can't do
questions.
it. I can't.
It is too distracting.
Yeah.
See, I'll do it for a moment and then turn it off. If I'm up late, and I'm trying not to do that anymore. And we're going to be going on a break in a little bit, but we have one more segment, and you have a lot more to share here still. So come back and join us and hear more about the writing life from Tonia. And as she said, it is a journey, and for her, 30 years. So enjoy and join us again. Thanks.
TSPN, and now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond. This program also streams live on the web at TSPNTV.com and can be watched on demand at TSPNTV.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Hi, welcome to the final segment tonight of Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond. I'm your hostess, Kathy Boyd Fellure, here for TSPN TV, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the bookstore next door that is upstairs and downstairs and is so full of a world of creativity and, I don't want to use the word enchantment, but you disappear into the new, used, and rare books, and they have created a world upstairs now where they'll be doing theater, the murder mysteries, and I'm so looking forward to when they go full forward with that. You go in and ask Brian or Eric, and Wolf may be there, and they will help you find whatever you're looking for. You can homeschool there, do critiques groups, book launches, book signings, just about everything. There's a men's group that meets there. I joined one day, and they were very friendly, but I didn't fit in, but they were gentlemen about it. And you can find unusual things there. Tonia stopped before she came to the show tonight.
Well, I made a friend.
Oh, you did? Oh,
The kitty.
the kitty,
Yes.
Emily.
Yes.
Yeah, she
was relentless.
yeah. She's
Yeah.
used to a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want you to miss anything with Tonia, so I'm going to go back to her and let her kind of finish telling you, because you see me all the time, sharing with you from her heart that which I don't want her to leave without opening it up and you leaving with something too. So Tonia, let's go from Emily the kit.
She's a great kitty.
Yeah,
She was. Yeah.
She is.
And I did wander around in this store, and it was very enchanting. And I know I didn't spend enough time in there, but I'd like to go back. I saw there was a poetry book, Wendell Berry's poetry book was on the front table, and he's another author just recently that I've become acquainted with.
Okay.
He writes fiction and nonfiction, and he really digs into his characters.
Were these the books outside?
No, it was
It's inside?
there was a little poetry book called Sabbath on the front table inside.
Inside.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I need to go back. Anyway, I was just going to say a little bit about the book, one of my novels, which turned out, I don't know if it's going to be actually published as a young adult, but I started thinking it could be a young adult.
Oh.
So Blood Exodus, and the reason why it could be a young adult, because the main protagonist is a young adult, and it's kind of a coming of age story, but it could also be historical fiction. So it could be, yeah. So it takes place approximately 1400 BC in Arabia. And I that was the book I was telling you about earlier, where my first foray into this world was this young girl, this scene with this young girl, and I didn't really know anything much about her except that she was kind of having a little tantrum. She was, protesting something, but I didn't know. So I wrote this all out, and then I followed her and made up this story around her, and I knew it was something, it would have been a primitive setting, and I didn't want it to be American Indian, and I know people told me, have always said, write what you know, but I didn't, and in fact, I didn't, but I did a lot of research about that area. A lot of that area is the same. So it takes place 1400 BC, and along the frankincense trail and the empty quarter, and there's a myth about Ubar, Atlantis of the Sands. So there was this myth in that region that still remains in that region about
I remember some of this from your research.
Yeah, about 20 years ago, a fellow from Southern California actually spent tons of money getting into this region, going in, because he was looking for the ruins of Ubar, which was a 6-sided city, and the Arabian myth about this myth, but I always wonder what comes with the myth. It's kind of a Sodom and Gomorrah story, and their story is that King Shaddad Ibn Ad was so debauched, and that God allowed the sands to swallow up the city.
Wow.
So anyway, that's where it takes.
Atlantis.
Yeah, the Atlantis of the sands. So I took my thought was when in every disaster, in every catastrophic thing, there's always a remnant. And so I wanted to work with the remnant and who had escaped from that place. And so I just started writing and called Blood Exodus. So it's actually a mythic retelling of the gospel in an Arabian setting.
Very interesting.
So, yeah.
And that's your work in progress?
Nope, it's done.
It is done. I thought so.
It's done.
Because I remember some of that research from before. I love the idea of YA.
Yeah.
I think that's not something you've done before, is it?
Well, I didn't know it was a fit. Mm-hmm. And I think it is a fit. I had adults in mind, but it's kind of like one of those, it's a book that would go either way. I mean, the adult, it definitely has adult themes in it, but there's nothing in it that would be too
juvenile.
Yeah, well, or rob an innocent child. I mean, there's nothing that has adult themes, but kids would learn a lot.
How old is the main protagonist?
Well, she starts out about 5.
Oh, okay.
5, and then she grows up and she gets married, and so there's a progression. Yeah.
There's also new adult.
I know. I'm not sure. So I'm not really sure. I know. We'll see what my agent has to say about that. And
here we go on this journey. See, you're still on the journey.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? And then also the Frankincense Tree, and that is a contemporary novel. It's very interesting to me that both of my work ends up in that area. So the Frankincense Tree is a contemporary novel about a young woman who's an artist, and she has a schizophrenic brother, and her mother has passed away, and her father is a doctor in Yemen. but it's after he's kidnapped and murdered, so that has happened, and then that comes right in the beginning of the book. And then the rest of the story is Chloe's battle with God over her faith. This has happened to her father. She's lost her mother. Her brother's schizophrenic, highly functioning, but it draws a lot of things in question in her mind. So it talks about, I explore that. Issues of abandonment. Yeah.
I remember that from critiquing years ago, and I have been waiting for that book to come out. It's such a beautiful story, Tonia. It has a great, not a message, but a great purpose in her journey. And I'm sure it's changed since I, laid eyes on it last. I've always felt it was meant to be out there.
Thanks.
Really making a difference.
Well, thanks. I just wanted something that wasn't sappy, and I think that, but was.
It's not sappy. It never was. I don't think it turned into that.
Well, I wanted it to address, that those deep questions of the heart and who God is. Do we really get to be intimately acquainted with God? Is he really interested? And
in each of us as an individual.
Yeah. Does he work uniquely? And my personal experience is yes, but I wanted it to ring true through this character as well, which it's very, it's a very vulnerable process of writing. Really, very vulnerable.
How long do you think you have written? How long have you been writing on it, rewriting?
This one, probably 14 years, because it started out, after Blood Exodus, I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can start another novel. So I fooled myself. I tricked myself into, I said I was going to write interconnected short stories.
Oh.
But my critique group...
Short stories.
Yeah. My critique group said, this is a novel. What are you thinking? So
I love your work. I don't get to read it and critique it at all anymore. In closing, we have a minute left. I am so glad you came.
Thanks for inviting me.
Very blessed, and I think all of you out there can watch this and learn, look at it, and you can contact Tonia. Can you give them your website again?
Yeah, if you go to Facebook, Mining with a Feather. Mining with a Feather. So, the feather is a quill. On one end it's brush, on the other end it's ink.
And remember her name, Tonia Colleen Martin.
Martin, yeah.
Thank you so much. And you can find The Color of Grace if you look for it online. It's worth it. It is so worth it. It's a lovely book. But Tonia's going other places, and I am so glad.
Thanks.
I think you're on a new part of your journey. So join us next month, and in the meantime, I hope you get to know Tonia a little better. Bye-bye.